In a small town nestled between rolling hills and a winding river, there lived two boys who could not have been more different from each other. Arham was quiet, thoughtful, and loved to read. He spent most of his days in the town's tiny library, poring over books about faraway lands and forgotten heroes. His friend, Bilal, was the complete opposite. Loud, daring, and full of energy, Bilal could never stay still for long. If he wasn't climbing trees, he was chasing birds or skipping stones across the river's surface. Yet despite their differences, the two shared an unbreakable bond that had begun when they were barely 5 years old. Their friendship was born out of a simple act of kindness. One day, as children, Arham had dropped his lunchbox on the dusty school floor, and all the food had scattered. The other children laughed, but Bilal had quietly offered half of his own meal. From that day forward, they became inseparable. They walked to school together, shared stories under the old banyan tree, and dreamt of the future, as though the world belonged to them. Years passed, and their friendship grew deeper. They went through every stage of childhood side by side, scraped knees, failed exams, secret victories, and long summer evenings filled with laughter. Bilal often teased Arham for being too cautious. "You think too much," he would say, grinning as he leapt from rock to rock by the river. "Life is for living, not just reading about." Arham would smile in return. "And you should think sometimes before you leap," he would reply. They balanced each other like sun and shade, action and thought, heart and mind. But as time moved on, the world around them began to change. Their town, once quiet and green, started to fill with noise and construction. People moved in from cities, businesses sprang up, and slowly, the river that once sparkled began to dull. Bilal's father lost his small farm when the land was sold to developers, and soon after, Bilal had to take up work to help his family. Arham, meanwhile, continued his studies, winning a scholarship to a college in the nearby city. The day he left, Bilal came to see him off at the bus stop. "Don't forget us village folk when you become a big man," Bilal joked, but there was a glint of sadness in his eyes. "Never," Arham promised. "You're my brother." In the city, Arham was overwhelmed at first. The noise, the rush, the endless sea of strangers. It was all so different from the peaceful rhythms of home. But he found comfort in Bilal's occasional phone calls. Even when Bilal couldn't afford much credit, he'd call just to say, "Oi, city boy, don't turn into a robot, okay?" Arham would laugh, his heart warming with every word. Months turned into years, and Arham graduated with top honors. He was offered a job at a company that promised him a bright future. His life became a whirl of meetings, screens, and deadlines. He sent money home regularly and visited his family whenever he could, but somehow he and Bilal started to drift apart. The calls became fewer and the messages shorter. When they did talk, Bilal's tone had changed slightly, still friendly, but quieter, as though something unspoken lingered between them. One winter, Arham finally decided to visit home after nearly 2 years. The town had changed beyond recognition. The hills were now dotted with new buildings, and the river had shrunk to half its size. He walked through familiar streets, feeling a strange mix of nostalgia and loss. When he reached Bilal's house, he was shocked to find it half collapsed, its roof patched with tin sheets. Bilal's mother welcomed him with tears in her eyes. "He's been through hard times, Arham," she said softly. "Work's been scarce since the factories closed." When Bilal finally appeared, he looked older, thinner, his once bright eyes shadowed with fatigue. But when he saw Arham, his face lit up with the same mischievous grin. "Look who's back, the great city man," he said, clapping Arham on the back. They laughed and spent the evening reminiscing about their childhood. But as the night deepened, Arham couldn't help but notice the exhaustion in his friend's voice. "Why didn't you tell me things were so bad?" Arham asked quietly. Bilal shrugged. "You had your own life to live. I didn't want to trouble you. Besides, we all have our battles." Arham looked at him, feeling a pang of guilt. "You're my friend. That's not trouble." The next day, Arham offered to help Bilal find a job in the city. But Bilal hesitated. "I'm not sure city life is for me," he said. "I belong here. Even if things are hard, this is my home." Arham respected that, but he couldn't shake the feeling that he owed Bilal something more. Weeks later, Arham returned to the city, but Bilal lingered in his thoughts. He often sent money anonymously to Bilal's family, hoping to ease their struggles without making his friend feel indebted. One day Bilal called. "I know it was you," he said simply. "You think I wouldn't recognize your handwriting on those envelopes?" Arham hesitated. "I just wanted to help, I know," Bilal replied softly. "But friendship isn't about who gives more, it's about being there side by side. You've always been my friend, Arham. Don't let guilt change that." They talked for hours that night about life, dreams, and how the world had changed. And in that conversation, Arham realized that distance and time could never truly erase the bond they shared. Friendship wasn't measured in how often they spoke or how much they gave. It was in the quiet understanding that they would always be there for each other, no matter how much the world shifted around them. A few months later, tragedy struck the town. Heavy rains caused a landslide near the river, destroying several houses, including Bilal's. Arham rushed back as soon as he heard the news. The town was in chaos, with people searching through debris. When Arham finally found Bilal, he was helping rescue others, his clothes covered in mud, his hands bruised. "You came?" Bilal said breathlessly, smiling despite everything. "I knew you would." Together they worked for hours, pulling people from the wreckage and providing what help they could. That night, as they sat by the remnants of the banyan tree where they once dreamed as children, Arham said quietly, "You're the bravest person I know." Bilal chuckled. "I just do what I can. Maybe I don't have fancy degrees, but I have my people. That's what matters." Arham looked at his friend, realizing that Bilal's strength came not from education or wealth, but from his heart, the same heart that had once shared a meal with a lonely boy so many years ago. In the months that followed, Arham used his position in the city to organize aid for the town. He convinced his company to fund rebuilding projects, and Bilal took charge of coordinating the work locally. Together, they restored homes, cleaned the river, and reopened the school. The town slowly began to heal. During the project, Arham often stayed in the village for weeks. He and Bilal worked side by side, laughing like they had as children, arguing over small things, and sharing silent moments when words weren't needed. One evening, as the sun set over the hills, Bilal turned to Arham. "Do you ever think about how different we are?" he asked. "All the time," Arham smiled, "but maybe that's why it works. You teach me to live, and I teach you to dream." Bilal nodded, gazing at the fading light. "Then maybe friendship isn't about similarity, it's about balance." Years passed once again, but their bond only grew stronger. Arham eventually moved back to the town permanently, leaving behind the city's glittering skyline. He built a small library in memory of their childhood, filled with books and a plaque at the entrance that read, "Dedicated to the power of friendship." Bilal helped run the place, turning it into a community center where children came not just to read, but to learn, play, and dream, just as they once had. As they grew older, their hair turned gray, but their laughter never faded. They often sat together by the river, now clean and full once more, watching the children run across the grass. "You know," Bilal said one evening, "we didn't do so bad." Arham smiled. "No, we didn't. We kept our promise to never forget where we came from." The sun dipped below the horizon, casting golden ripples across the water. Silence settled between them, comfortable and warm. In that quiet moment, Arham realized that true friendship doesn't fade with time or distance. It survives hardship, it grows through change, and it becomes stronger with every trial faced together. When one day Bilal fell ill, Arham stayed by his side, reading aloud from the old books they once loved. Bilal would smile faintly, his eyes closing as Arham's voice filled the room. "Remember when you said I should think before I leap?" Bilal murmured once. Arham laughed softly. "And you said I should stop thinking so much." I suppose we both learned a little from each other. Bilal's hand tightened around his. "That's what friendship is for." After Bilal passed away peacefully, the town mourned deeply. The library held a memorial where people spoke of his kindness, his courage, and his laughter that never faded even in hard times. Arham, though heartbroken, felt an immense gratitude for having known someone like him. Every day after that, Arham would visit the river and sit beneath the banyan tree alone, feeling the breeze rustle through its leaves. He could almost hear Bilal's laughter carried by the wind. The world around him changed again, but one thing remained eternal: the memory of their friendship, pure and unbroken. He understood then that some connections outlive even time itself. True friendship doesn't end with life. It continues in the stories, the places, and the hearts it touches. As the years went on, children in the village would hear tales of Arham and Bilal, two friends who were like night and day, yet together made a complete world. And so the story of their friendship became part of the town's soul, a reminder that no matter how far people drift, true friends find their way back to each other again and again across every season of life.